Hello and welcome to Daf Hashavua. My name is Yair Alon and I am an Israeli rabbi living in Brazil. Remember, you can find videos on my channel about the Parashiot of the Torah and the Daily Zohar, both in Portuguese, and our new projects, Talmud Vibes and Daf Hashavua, in English. But all the videos have subtitles available in both languages. Be sure to turn them on and check them out. Enjoy! In case you missed our previous videos of this series, here is the link to the playlist. Please make sure to watch it and, as always, let us know what you think of the videos and of the series. Okay? And if you did watch it, thank you for coming back. Okay, so we continue our discussion on damages, exploring Dapim pages 31 through 37. As usual, let's first have an overview of what our sages are discussing, and then we can elaborate some reflections on the most important topics. Let's start, shall we? Our first daf, 31, presents us with the case of two potters carrying their wares on a public space. The first one falls and breaks his vessels. The second potter then trips on the first one and falls as well, also breaking his vessels. The sages then discuss the limits of the responsibilities for each individual in that event, and start changing the variables of the story to reflect how and if the law will change. What if three potters were involved instead of two, and so on. The most important conclusion reached was that the first potter in general has all the liability, or most of it, depending on the sage and the scenario, because the first potter or did not get out of the way after falling, nor did he shout to the others coming after him, warning them to stop and not to fall. So basically, the Talmud is saying, you can be clumsy sometimes, no problem with that. But make sure you do everything you can to prevent your mistakes from causing people any harm, any damage. Daf 32 has a very unexpected plot twist. The sages go from this discussion about two potters to different wares being carried around. What if the two people involved are carrying, for example, a beam and a barrel? So far, absolutely expected, right? Typical Talmud style. But then, one of the sages somehow associates the beam and a barrel to sexual parts. What? Yeah, I'm sure you did not see this coming, right? And so they spend a good part of this daf analyzing the scenario of damages caused by the beam entering the barrel and breaking it. Or to put it more bluntly and explicitly, in case you didn't get it, the case where a husband harms his wife during sexual intercourse. And let me tell you, the Talmud sages, according to our modern times, can be seen sometimes as misogynist, sexist, etc. But in this case, their discussion is pretty progressist. Their conclusion is that the person carrying the beam needs to be aware of the limits of their right, meaning they need to know that their beam occupies some space and can harm other vessels. So they are absolutely liable for damages if the person carrying the barrel warns them to stop and they don't. Taking the discussion to sexual act, as the sages did, this is the rule of a no means a no. If the barrel, the woman, says stop, her husband, the beam, has to stop it and has to know that he is hurting her. At the end of Daf 32, the sages discuss the case of a person that enters a carpenter's workshop and dies there after the carpenter told the person not to enter, meaning the person was not invited. This is an important discussion in cases in which you are entering a labor area, and specialized people, professionals, tell you not to enter, and you do so anyway. Or they don't tell you, but you do so. Is it their fault, or do you have to know that you should not enter labor areas without being invited? For example, can you freely enter and wander in building sites? In an hospital room with radiation machinery? Suppose the hospital staff does not put a board in the door telling you there is radiation there. You enter there and receives radiation. Is it the hospital fault, or is it your fault they entered a place where you shouldn't be at first place? Moving on to page 33. The most important part of this page concerns legal prerogatives when multiple individuals may have rights over a given object. Our sages will illustrate that case with, yes, of course you got it right, with oxen. So imagine someone has an ox which gored something or someone. By now you are a specialist in this case, right? The owner of this beast will pay differently according to the status of this goring ox. If it is an innocuous ox, the owner pays half the total damage. If it is a forewarned ox, the owner of this violent aggressor pays full damage. So far, so good. This payment is usually carried out by selling the ox, and we have seen all this. But here is the problem. What if this ox, which was supposed to be sold in order to pay for the damages it caused, was in fact already promised to a creditor in lien? Who takes precedence and gets the ox? The creditor that was supposed to have it, or the injured part in the goring incident? Through this simplified story, our sages are addressing a very difficult question. How does one deal with multiple people entitled to compensation in a scenario of limited resources? How do I divide a small cake for a lot of children to eat? That is a tough call to make, and the different solutions and reflections in the DAF are bound to shed some light into this matter. Make sure to have a look if you have the opportunity. DAF 34 gets down to business in the best Wall Street style and discusses matters of appreciation and depreciation of value. My ox causes damage now, in a given moment of time, but the market price of oxen changes shortly afterwards, up or down. How does it affect the obligation to compensate for damages caused? Will I pay according to the new value or the value at the time of the damage? This is especially important in cases of long-term wounds caused by the damage. So suppose the person takes 1 year to heal and I have to pay for her treatment all this time. And maybe the injured ox will depreciate during this period of 1 year. So the person will not receive everything she really needs as a compensation, right? So DAF 35 deals with the very serious and still relevant issue of the burden of proof. There was a goring incident. You say that the ox that gored you was mine, and I say that it wasn't mine. Who has to prove it? Or in another example, you say that my ox has gored you, and I admit to the fact. But then you say it was my premium ox, worth $1,000. So you will get $500 fine. And I say, no, it was my worst and cheapest ox, worth $200, and you are entitled to $100. Who has to prove which ox was the goring one? You or me? Before giving you the Talmud's answer, it is interesting to know that the Talmud will take this discussion and conduct us to a very peculiar reflection on the nature and intelligence of animals. And Rav Papa's ox is one of the funniest cases in the Talmud. This sage tells his friends that he knows an ox so smart that one day it was suffering from a toothache. It went to Rav Papa's production of beer and broke the barrels to drink the beer and cure its tooth and get healed from the pain. DAF 36 will establish a monetary standard for the payment of fines and compensations, and finally DAF 37 will bring a peculiar case of an ox that only gored during Shabbat and how to deal with that. The question is important because here, besides the damage caused, there is a violation of Shabbat. Should this be considered two crimes, two punishments, or only one big crime joined together? Well, this was the synopsis of the Dapim of the week in terms of what they discuss. So now, let's take all this wisdom and try to select a couple of topics to analyze a bit more carefully in order to maybe apply these teachings into our week, into our day-to-day lives, and try to reflect on that, okay? As usual, remember that from now on, these are merely my thoughts and reflections. Please do not attribute these considerations to the sages, alright? Don't forget also to leave your unique views in the comments below the video. Well, as you already know by now, Talmud concerns people's lives, livelihoods, communities, and all other aspects of our day-to-day lives, and all situations in which a person will relate to another person. That includes, of course, sexuality. And this is the first time the issue is mentioned explicitly in our studies here. Whether we are thinking about DAF 32 with the symbolic discussion of the beam and the barrel, or DAF 33, which talks about permission of entering someone else's space, entering the carpenter workshop, and other cases, all these things can shed some light on our sexuality. For starters, we need to understand that in Judaism, sex and the way we deal with sex is a very special way to relate to others and to the Creator. But it's just one more way. It's not the only way, not more special than other ways. When I mean it's a special way to connect to others, I mean that we need to consider some guidelines for this mode of interaction with others. On the other hand, when I say it's just one more way, I mean it follows some guidelines that will apply to all of our interactions, regardless of what we are doing. Judaism will always tell you we should be mindful of our special status in the creation, meaning how we are the apex of creation and we are hierarchically above animals, plants, stones, etc. As Jews, we have our mitzvot to remember us of this and to help us be this apex of creation. When we eat, we do not eat like animals, for example. Kashrut is there to remind us that eating is a way to obey God and to eat in a holy way. The bracha we recite before eating is there to remind us that eating is a way to serve God. Sharing our food and inviting people to our tables is a way to remember how bountiful we are by God's grace and to remember that we are not the only ones who matter. The same rationale is the basis for any other facet of our existence, including sex. When we treat sex and deal with it like animals, we lower our status in creation. When we do it properly, on the other hand, it connects us to another human being, and this lets us experience the joy and holiness of creation, whether literally, in the creation of a new life, and we are co-creating the world, or symbolically, as we are creating pleasure and happiness to ourselves and to others. The discussion about the beam and the barrel, for instance, reminds us of the importance of paying attention and respect to our partner in sex. It should go without saying, but unfortunately, many people have sex thinking only in their selfish pleasure and ignoring their partner's physical and emotional needs. Their beams will just stand on the way and disregard any barrels on their path. This is not how it works, the Talmud says. Acknowledging your partner's emotion and needs is nothing but respect for the dignity of that person, and thus for the dignity of humans and the dignity of our sexuality. In a sense, it is also connected to all the other dapim of this week. When we read the Talmudic discussion about damages caused by a collision of two people, one who is running and another one who is walking, we can maybe also think about different sexual rhythms and needs in terms of pleasure. Understanding your own sexual needs and communicating to your partner about it, at the same time you make an effort to understand his or her needs, is a way to avoid damages caused by different rhythms and expectations. It is an intent of making both having a pleasant experience and no damages involved. In other words, the daf, and maybe the whole Bava Kamma tractate, is about awareness of other people, even outside of the sex issue. How many times do we hear about people who have been married for a long time and have never really asked their partner about how they feel on a specific topic, be it sex or something else? The Talmud is asking us to reconsider that, to be mindful of others, to take others into account. This may also be connected to another topic in the Dapim, the long-term wounds, or what today maybe we could call emotional responsibility. When we are meeting someone new, dating someone, trying to have a new relationship, how do I deal with the other person? As if it was a real human being with feelings, emotions, fears, a history, and deserving respect, or as if it were an object and a toy made only to satisfy me? Sometimes we hurt others because we fall on the emotional road of life, because we have tripped on someone other person that have crossed our way and has suffered an accident and was lying on the floor of emotional life too. This person was hurt and hurt us out of negligence. Sometimes I am hurt because this person was carelessly roaming around in the street with his or her beam and hurt us simply because they selfishly disregarded anyone else. And then do I also have the right to hurt someone? No. The Talmud says I am responsible for what I do. The person who is falling has to stand up before making others fall. Or if this person can't stand up and needs more time to recover, fine. But then you have to warn others. Look, I'm not ready for a relationship now. No lying, no faking, no ghosting, no gaslighting, emotional responsibility. Whatever the case, it all amounts to the same. Sex and sexuality is about connecting us to ourselves, to our creator, and to others. When the selfish crave for satisfaction makes us forget who we are, our dignity, or our emotional responsibility to our partner, we are severing the connection to the divine and sinking into animalist action. I know that as a rabbi, talking about sexuality on a public place like a YouTube channel can be odd to some people, as this is a topic that people are very passionate about. It's a taboo too many times. But if the sages of the Talmud are talking about it, it's just another proof that we have to talk about it as well, in a very respectful manner, as always. After all, this is a part of our life. I always like to remember people that Judaism is one of the religions that chose not to ask for celibacy, nor for their leaders, nor for any of its members. Okay, so how do you feel about these thoughts and reflections? Please share your insights with me and let me know what's your views in the comments, okay? Well, many deep reflections, right? As you see, every daf, every page presents an opportunity to analyze our life in some way or another. It's the wisdom given by Hashem and passed down through generations, and by watching this video, actually, you are also participating in this dialogue and connecting to this chain of our most precious tradition. If you like this video, please make sure to check our other projects here in the channel. Please also like, share, comment, and subscribe. And if you feel that the video has moved you somehow, please also consider becoming a member through YouTube club membership or through our Patreon. Thank you for watching, and I wish you a fruitful week with your Torah and Talmud studies. Stay tuned, stay healthy. See you next week. Shavua Tov.